Итак, друзья, спасибо всем, кто уже здесь. Мы начинаем наш сегодняшний вечер. Значит, сегодня мы решили сделать вечер, посвященный кануну Дня Святого Валентина, поскольку этот праздник стал последние пару десятилетий популярен и в нашей стране, и он уже давно и довольно прочно популярен в Ирландии. Сегодня наше мероприятие будет двуязычным. Оно будет и на английском, и на русском. Значит, первая часть будет на английском, и наши гости и участники, живущие в Ирландии, Ksenia Kudenko и Джейн Тейлор, они расскажут про День Святого Валентина, про истории, связанные с этим праздником, про вообще тему любви и как она существовала, романтической любви, как она существовала в ирландской истории, в ирландских легендах, и как она существует сегодня в реальной жизни, ежедневной жизни сегодняшней Ирландии. Вот, они будут рассказывать на английском. Кроме этого, у нас есть два замечательных совершенно музыкальных файла. Это такой подарок к нашему вечеру от наших друзей, арфисток замечательных Анастасии Егоровой и Анастасии Сергеевой. Я обязательно продемонстрирую эту музыку. Она тоже не просто так выбрана, а специально именно к этой теме и к этому дню. Вот. Немножко хочу представить сегодняшних спикеров, прежде чем дать им слово. Да, и еще хочу сказать, что во второй части, когда, собственно, рассказы закончатся, вы можете задавать любые вопросы, любые комментарии, делать свободное общение. И вот это мы будем делать только на русском. Мы так договорились. Почему? Потому что Джейн Тейлор, которая с нами сегодня, она студент русской программы Тринити колледжа Дублинского университета, единственной на сегодняшний день в Ирландии русской программы. Поэтому она понимает русский и говорит на русском, и это для нее тоже было бы полезно. Так что мы совместим два языка сегодня в нашем мероприятии. Now I turn to English and say a few words about Ksenia and about Jane. Ksenia already lives in Ireland for, I think, 7 or 8 years.
7, I think, yeah.
7, yeah, permanently. Ksenia lives in Cork. She works there. She can say a few words about that. I'm very lucky to have such a wonderful former student of mine. Ksenia once was a student of my program, Irish Language and Culture, in the State University of St. Petersburg. And then she made her studies in Ireland herself for MA, and then she became PhD in Irish philology and history. But now she will say a few words herself. So she is with us from Cork, while Jane is with us from Dublin, another important Irish city. And Jane is making her studies of Russian language and culture, as I mentioned in the program of Russian studies in the Trinity College of the Dublin University. And she is about to finish to accomplish her studies and coming to conclusion. And if you have any questions besides the theme, just about Russian program, you are also welcome to ask anything you want. Now I pass the word to Ksenia, and she will tell you about St. Valentine in historical approach and something about Irish and Celtic legends of romance.
Well, to begin with, we are kind of sticking to English for now, right? But I encourage you, in case, I don't know, I speak too fast, or you don't know some words, or I mumbled some words and you don't know what they mean, don't hesitate just to stop me, just unmute yourself and stop me, and I will repeat in Russian and so on, because I suppose the task today is for everyone to enjoy ourselves and to learn something new, you know. So in case you'd like me to slow down or repeat something, I'll be happy to do that. I'll start sharing my screen, I suppose. Share screen, share. All right. Cool. To begin with, so we're sticking today to St. Valentine's Day's topics. And as Andrey said, my specialization as such is all things medieval in terms of Ireland. So it is Old and Middle Irish language, Early Irish history and literature. And to be honest, although I will try to show that St. Valentine's Day was indeed celebrated in late Middle Ages on the continent, it was not as such celebrated in Ireland. At least we don't have any manuscript evidence or any historic evidence that it was known in medieval Ireland, apart from the calendar feast of the saint, which it is, right? So what I decided to do is to talk a little bit about Irish legends about love and Irish romance and all those things, right? So let's begin with having a look at who Saint Valentine is and how it turned out that his day became what you call it, the kind of day of love as we know it now, yeah? So Saint Valentine, obviously, he's one of the saints of Catholic Church, of Roman Catholic Church. And in Roman Catholic calendar, February 14th is just his day. It's the day of his commemoration, the day when the church commemorates this saint. So it means that remembers this saint, mentions this saint during the Mass and so on. And the saint who has this day as his day of commemoration, it is the so-called Valentine of Rome. Who he was obviously a martyr, as many early Christians were. He died around 269 AD because he was persecuted as a Christian in early years of Christianity in Roman Empire. And interestingly enough, the relics of St. Valentine are like, I mean, the relics consist of different parts of saint's body, as you know. Yeah, it can be parts of the skin, bones, hair, I don't know, teeth, you name it. But if I'm not mistaken, the skull of St. Valentine, allegedly of St. Valentine, is currently stored actually in Dublin in the White Friars Street Carmelite Church. And on the picture you can see the sort of like, wouldn't call it an altar piece, because altar, it's where the Mass is happening, but this one, it is some sort of little corner where his shrine is stored, and you can read that it says Saint Valentine, listen, and there is a statue of Saint Valentine, and it is nicely enough because it's decorated with roses, and you can see there are even tiny notes left on the table. I suppose those are people or pilgrims, you know, people who come into the church and leave their notes for St. Valentine's to bless them, I don't know, with happy marriage or something like that. So it is quite a curious link between Ireland and St. Valentine's, probably the only medieval link I was able to find. And that's Saint Valentine, as such, as many other early Christian saints, his real life is totally unknown to us, because the church tradition usually passes the lives of change in terms of legends, you know. So we have indeed a legend about Saint Valentine. As I already said, he was one of the first Christians. He was an early Christian. He was a priest, right? He was a priest living in the Roman Empire in the 3rd century. And obviously he was prosecuted because Roman Empire before Constantine the Great was, as you all know, pagan. And so Christianity was forbidden and Christians were persecuted. And St. Valentine was one of them. You probably would remember, you watched in some movies all those, like, you know, battles in Roman Empire, and when there are fighters with animals and so on. So in the early days of Roman Empire, early Christianity, very often those people who were thrown into the paws of lions or tigers in Colosseum, those were early Christians. So they were basically tortured and persecuted for following Christian faith. And St. Valentine was one of them. And the legend says, we have absolutely no means of verifying it, but the legend says that while he was in a prison awaiting his sentence, he performed a miracle of healing, because otherwise he wouldn't be a saint. You know, in the church, in order to become a saint, you need to be a miracle worker. So his legend necessarily needed the element of the miracle, and here we have it. So it is said that he met the daughter of his prison guard, and she was blind. She was young, she was a young girl, but she was blind. And he healed her so that she was able to see again. And after he was killed, the whole family of the girl, obviously, they got turned to Christianity, they got baptized, and so on and so on. So this is per se a very traditional element of the life of the saint. So he performs a healing to a pagan, and this pagan turns to Christ. That's what it is. And if any of you, which I'm not sure about, would ever be working with Middle Ages, you would necessarily see the name of the Golden Legend. The Golden Legend, it was a medieval bestseller, so it was extremely popular, and it contained lives of the saints, which basically represented, like, I don't know, like a TV show, a TV series about the lives of the saints. So there were like all the stories with all those miracles and fantastic details, and it was clearly a bestseller of medieval times. So this bestseller with the Golden Legend, it was perceived in the 18th century as kind of not being enough, especially for St. Valentine, you know, that the people who were reworking this legend in the 18th century, they decided that it needs to be kind of like a little bit embellished. So they introduced a love story into it, and now Saint Valentine, according to this new version of the legend, he healed the blind girl because he was in love with her. And before the night when he got executed, he sent her a letter, and the letter was signed "Your Valentine" because it was his name. But you know that currently there is a tradition of exchanging those Valentine cards, and people would sign themselves as "Your Valentine," kind of, "I am your Valentine," and so on. So this is believed that at least that's what this tradition is coming from this embellished version of the legend in the 18th century. Then another turn of this legend was that Saint Valentine, he was not only the priest who was preaching Christianity, he was also marrying the soldiers in the Roman Empire, the Roman soldiers who were Christians in secret. So he was marrying them according to the Christian faith and the sacrament of marriage as the church knows it. And in this way, you see, he's already introduced into the legend as the patron saint of the lovers, of people who would like to get married. And the legend also says that he was wearing an amethyst ring with the cupid, with the kind of shape of a small angel cut in it. And that's how those soldiers who were Christians in secret, they knew that this priest is in front of them, and they were able to consult him and to ask him to basically marry them. And as you know, the small cupid and all those angels and so on, they are currently the symbols of the day as well. So as we know it, Saint Valentine as the patron saint of lovers and the whole paraphernalia of those saints, including the cupid and hearts and all those things and rings, this all comes from the reworked legend in the 18th century. And the feast, the St. Valentine's Day, was slowly developing. First of all, it feeds quite nicely in the whole topic of love as the kind of blossoming of relationship, new life, new beginning, because it is the 14th of February, which means it is, in most of Europe, it is like the early spring, you know, or the end of winter, the early spring. That's when birds start already kind of creating their couples, and you can see the life being reborn after the sleep of winter. So it had a relation to spring. So it was nice enough to pick up this date, the 14th of February, because of all those spring connotations. But the whole, I would say, this day got a totally new life in the 15th century, when it was the era of court love. If you remember, I don't know, maybe in the university from the module of foreign literature, you would remember that 14th, 15th century, when in England there are minstrels, and in France there were like troubadours and Minnesänger in Germany. So those poets, bards, the singers of love, who basically promoted this image of courtly love to a dame, to lady, who would be a noble lady, and he would express his purest and noblest feelings for her in his poetry. And that's when the St. Valentine's Day comes in very handy for those people, because look, it is like a special day for them. And there is even a name for the woman you like, which is like my Valentine. I actually found in Shakespeare's Hamlet, it is Ophelia who is saying this to Hamlet. Tomorrow is St. Valentine's Day, all in the morning bee time, and I am made at your window to be your Valentine. So this formulaic naming of your Valentine or be my Valentine, already Shakespeare knew quite well about it. And the tradition as such got very popular in Victorian England. And here you have some lovely postcards from the Victorian times. And you can see that all those little angels and hearts, and it's all already there, which is middle of the 19th century. And that's it pretty much about the short history of the day as such. And I just wanted to encourage you to learn a little bit more about the old Irish, romantic literature, let's put it this way, because the way we perceive literature even nowadays, it is very much informed by the ways love was described much earlier than our time. And the roots of medieval romances partly lies in the Old and Middle Irish tradition, or in Welsh tradition, basically in Celtic literatures. And it's just a short overview of two legends. One of them is called the Exile of the Sons of Ushler, and the second one is called the Pursuit of Dermot and Grania. And both of them are very beautiful legends. The first one was translated into Russian in the book which is called Sagi об Улодах. It was a book issued by the Moscow State University with the translations of the sagas of the Ulster cycle, because there are a few cycles of literature in medieval Ireland, and Ulster cycle was one of them. So Ulster, it is the northern province, and that's the cycle of literature devoted to the events which were happening up in the north. And in this legend, there is a love triangle already. There is the King of Ulster, and his name is written here on the slide. His name is Conchobar Macniesa. And there is a very young girl who is betrothed to him. So she is about to become his wife. And obviously she's less than happy about it, because he is an elderly man and she is a very young woman. And one day she meets Nisha. Well, I mean, this Naoise. In early Irish, it is called Nisha, and I think in modern Irish as well. So Nisha, he is the nephew on Conchobar, and obviously they're both young and hot and passionate. So they fall in love with each other, and they escape to Scotland. And they live happily there. And then they are tricked to go back to Ireland. They are promised pardon on behalf of the king. They are promised the peace with the people of the tribe, but Nisha is tricked by the king, and so he gets himself killed. And Deirdre, she laments in this legend, and the lament, it is like, I mean, I'm sure even if you try to Google this story, it is called in Russian "Изгнание сыновей Усныха." I think that you might be very impressed with her lament, because it is a very long poem, and it is beautiful, and it is very colorful. And this image of Deirdre of sorrows, as she's called, it was one of the most beloved images of the whole, I would say, Irish culture. And then it was picked up from the oblivion by the people who played really prominent roles in the so-called Celtic revival. And William Butler Yeats, the leading poet of this movement, he wrote his own play based on the images of Naoise and Deirdre, and same John Millington Synge, another poet and writer of Celtic revival. He has a play which is called exactly Deirdre of Sorrows. So this topic of the love triangle, it is really very popular in Irish traditional literature. And another one, as I said, it is Dermot and Grania. The story belongs to a different cycle. It belongs to the Fenian cycle, which is the cycle of Leinster. Leinster, it is where Dublin is, and Kildare. So it is the eastern part of Ireland. So it is a different cycle, but the topic is exactly the same. Grania is a young woman, and she is about to become a wife of Finn MacCool. Finn MacCool, he is the legendary hero of the so-called Fenians, who are kind of the band of warriors. And of course, she doesn't want to marry an old man. She wants to marry Dermot, who is a young man. And the story goes that they escape from the feast, and they elope from the castle where they all live, and they start living in the wilderness, in the forests, in the fields, and so on. And if you go to Ireland one day, just for your information, they are believed to elope to Sligo, to County Sligo on the west. And many places in Sligo are still related to Dermot and Grania. There are, for example, megalithic stones, which are called in Irish Leaba agus Grania, which means the beds of Dermot and Grania. So it is believed to be, those megalithic constructions are believed to be, I don't know how to say, basically like providing them with shelter or something. So those are the sites in County Sligo. You can see that there is a cave, and there are all those dolmens. So you see how the memory still preserves those ancient tales and relates certain parts of the landscape to them. And just to finish up and to make it probably make more sense to all of us, the much more well-known story of Tristan and Izolt is actually believed to be partly based on those two legends of Dermot and Grania on the one hand, and of Deirdre and Naoise on the other hand. As you probably know, Tristan and Izolt is originally a French novel of the Arthurian cycle, so of the cycle which deals with the Knights of the Round Table and King Arthur and so on. But it nonetheless still has the love triangle and the whole idea of two young lovers escaping the wrath of the lawful husband and living alone in the wilderness, in the forests and so on, and avoiding confrontation with the king. And it all always ends up in tragedy. So yeah, I may say that Irish romantic tradition doesn't really know good, happy endings that well, but nonetheless, it is well worth to reread those tales and to remember from where our own, I would say, ideals of romantic love are coming from. So this is it. Yeah, I think I can stop sharing now. Yeah, it worked.
Thank you very much, Ksenia. Thank you so much for your wonderful presentation, so compact and so bright, and you mentioned the most important legend and the most important romantic stories. Before I demonstrate the first musical file, which is the harp tune Romeo and Juliet, very much corresponding to the previous epoch that you described, the medieval time. By this tune, we will pass to the Renaissance time and further. But before that, I want to say that I personally was very much acclaimed and attached to one of these pieces you mentioned, Deirdre and Nisha Legend, because as you know, I'm a specialist in WB8s, and one of the first plays that I started to translate myself into Russian was Deirdre. There is a big distinction between Yeats's approach to Deirdre and her image in his play, and Deirdre, Daughter of Sorrows by John Millington Synge, because there are two different versions of the same legendary heroine, of the same legendary person, because Synge's approach is much more realistic in describing the situation and the fabula of the story, while W.B. Yeats' approach is more mythological and legendary. He wants to speak about universal things, using Deirdre and Nisha and Conhobar and, well, Fergus as emblems, as symbolic images, and that is the difference. But it is so beautifully written in the tradition of the Celtic revival that I could not but try, and I made about 10 attempts of making different versions of translations of their play when I was much younger, starting from being 25 and later. And finally, I made the final version. It was about 15 years ago, and published it in a book. So for me, it was an important moment of my approaching of the Irish legendary history and Irish epos. So thank you very much for mentioning this.
That's exactly why I mentioned as a node to your interests.
Of
yeah,
Irish Helen. Because in Yeats' approach, Deirdre was like Helen of Troy for the Greeks, the same importance of.
But she was, and even like, I mean, I'm sorry for interrupting you, but even how the story begins in early Irish is that when her mother was pregnant, she got a prophecy from the Druid that you're pregnant with a woman who would destroy nations, and she would be the reason why lots of men would die. So it is like this epic, tragic scale of her influence, same as for Helen.
That's why in my dissertation there is a part where I was describing how the image of Deirdre is the part of the fin de siècle and Celtic revival times image of femme fatale, in that aspect. In a very mythological and legendary aspect, but of femme fatale, of course, of the one of beautiful, stunning lady who was unwillingly, not because of her wish, of course, became the reason of big troubles and destroy of the whole nation. That's of course what corresponds this image to Helen of Troy. Now I stop speaking, and I want you to listen to beautiful music which Anastasia Egorova shared with us. Now I need to switch it on. So just a couple of minutes. Can you hear the sound?
Yes, all good, yeah.
So you heard this beautiful tune, beautiful harp tune of about eternal love, about the most famous world theme of Romeo and Juliet, which I thought was a good, a good passage from the medieval times we've just spoken about to Renaissance and then to the new epoch. And I want to thank Anastasia for sharing this, for contributing that today. Anastasia Egorova, she lives in St. Petersburg. She is a wonderful harpist, Irish harp player and musician. And almost all our events before the pandemic, which were held in the Herzen University, she participated in with her beautiful contribution. And in every next event held during 2020 in Zoom, she also contributed with beautiful tunes. So thanks heartily for her for this contribution today. And now I pass word to Jane Taylor to continue the story of Saint Valentine in the modern epoch, as I say, in modern times. Jane, you are welcome.
Thank you very much. Okay, so share the screen. Okay, so Valentine's Day in Ireland. So obviously, like Ksenia said, that obviously I'm speaking in English and I might have an accent. I don't know if I do, but just stop me if you want me to repeat anything or if I didn't say something clearly, because I really want you guys to understand it. Okay. So how is Valentine's Day celebrated in Ireland? Well, you know, I wish I could say a lot more about St. Valentine's Day in Ireland, but it wouldn't be one of our major holidays, just like I think a lot of countries, but it's still celebrated because it is kind of an excuse for people to go out and to have fun and to go for dinner. So usually what people do is they will book a nice restaurant, or they will get a loved one flowers or chocolates, or like I have in the middle here, a Clatter Ring. So I'm going to talk about the significance of Clatter Rings a bit later in the presentation, but I'm going to start off a bit with, you know, how people celebrate and what usually we do. So Valentine's Day is quite commercialized, like a lot of other holidays, but because it's the first holiday after Christmas, the first kind of major holiday after Christmas, a lot of people will take it as an opportunity to do something. So usually people use it as an excuse to go away, maybe go abroad, or maybe visit somewhere else in Ireland, for example, Galway or Cork. A lot of people from Dublin will travel for the weekend, and there's a lot of hotels that will do like Valentine's Day deals where they'll have maybe like 2 nights with, you know, dinner thrown in and stuff. So it is quite it's quite popular, especially for, you know, younger couples and just newlyweds. A lot of the times Valentine's Day kind of themed movies are released around Valentine's Day. So a lot of people, especially like younger people, maybe like teenagers, they will go out to the cinema and they'll watch a movie. There's a really popular Valentine's Day movie called Valentine's Day, and I know that was released, and that's a really popular movie in Ireland. A lot of people will just watch it in their houses, or, you know, watch it on like the eve of Valentine's Day, and it just kind of gets people in the mood for Valentine's Day. Recently, obviously not this year because of COVID, but a lot of people would travel to, say, Rome or Paris. That's also quite a common thing that people do in Ireland. But, you know, if they don't want to go abroad, they'll kind of just do domestic trips. So a lot of children as well will wear red to school. I remember when I was younger, I used to wear like a red hairband like I am now. And it's just people try and make the most out of it. So let's go to the next one. So chocolate, obviously that's probably one of the most important parts of St. Valentine's Day. So I just have a few examples of Irish chocolate here. So we have Baileys, this one. So Baileys is obviously an Irish liqueur, and they have made it into chocolates. Butler's, probably one of the most famous Irish brands of chocolate. So yeah, for this one. Heroes by Cadbury's. Cadbury's is probably the most famous brand of chocolate in Ireland. One of their main factories is actually quite near to me here in Dublin. And they will come out with, say, like themed chocolate boxes. So for example, the heart, and usually in our local supermarkets, or just like the main supermarkets, they'll usually have they'll have all the chocolates on display when you walk in. So like it's just a big display of chocolates, because chocolates are probably one of the most common things that are given, even just between friends. And then I have Lear, another really famous chocolate brand, which is from the Children of Lear story. Flowers. So probably like every other country, flowers are extremely popular. Roses, probably the most popular, but other, you can give, you know, tulips or, you know, daisies, whatever you want. But roses definitely for Valentine's Day are the most popular. A lot of people will get their flowers from these street vendors. And if you go to Dublin, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So on Grafton Street, kind of in the middle of Grafton Street, they have these kind of like older ladies, and you know, they'll be very kind of traditional Dublin, and they'll be sitting at their, like, it's kind of like a kiosk, but not really, it's just like a flower kind of shop, and they'll have them all laid out, and it's so beautiful on Valentine's Day. If you're walking down Grafton Street, there's just so many roses. There's white roses, there's pink roses, there's red roses. It's just really beautiful, and the smell is so nice. So a lot of people will get flowers from these people, and they're probably a little bit cheaper than like a florist. And then so there's also another place in Dublin called Moore Street, and that's where there's big open markets, and a lot of people get their flowers there as well. So that's usually where people will get their flowers, but also there's like florists, and they deliver them to your house, or say you want to get them delivered to a friend, a loved one, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, you will just call and, you know, make an order, and then it'll be delivered to the house. But it is kind of expensive, to be honest. And also in Ireland, I know in Russia, I think it's like an uneven number of flowers is like what you do, but in Ireland we don't really have such tradition. Usually people will either give just one red rose, or people will give 6 or 12. So it's usually bunches will come in 6s or 12s, or just one. Like a majority of people will just give each other one red rose, especially if it's just friends. Like a lot of friends give each other Valentine's Day presents as well, and they'll just give each other like one red rose. For example, I gave my sister today one red rose. So there's the one red rose at the top, and then the bunch at the bottom. So in Ireland, like Valentine's Day isn't only for a partner or, you know, a wife or a husband. It's usually for everybody. So like neighbors will give each other flowers. I gave my neighbor today a flower, Valentine's Day, and like parents will give their children flowers, or children will give their parents flowers, or just even between family. It's not just you know, for a relationship. So jewelry. So obviously jewelry is another really common gift to give people. So in Ireland we have this, it's called a Clatter Ring, and it's one of our traditional jewelry, pieces of jewelry. And I'm going to talk about it a little bit more in a minute, but this is just a photo of it here. So you can see the emeralds in the middle, and then you can see that on the actual band itself, it has engraved loyalty, friendship, and then, you know, you can even get like names carved in. So it's quite popular for people on, say, if they get engaged on Valentine's Day, because that is quite a common thing to happen in Ireland, is you'll get engaged on Valentine's Day, and people will usually give each other Clatter Rings because, as an engagement ring, because it's just one of our traditional rings, and it's really nice as well. It's like a really pretty ring. So the Clatter Ring. So it's really, really, really famous in Ireland. A lot of people have Clatter Rings. I even own a Clatter Ring. So these design is quite unique, and I'm going to talk about the meaning. So the two hands mean friendship, the heart in the middle means love, obviously, and then the crown at the top presents loyalty. So obviously these three factors are, you know, quite important for any relationship. So obviously the Clatter Ring is a perfect symbol for, you know, a relationship, going into a relationship and getting engaged. A lot of people use it as an engagement ring. So there's actually different meanings of a Clatter Ring. So it depends on the hand you wear it on, and it depends on what way you have it facing. It's quite significant. So for example, on the left hand, so if the heart is facing inwards, so it's kind of just the normal way you wear it, like as any ring, it means that the person is married. And then if it's on the right hand, and if it's turned kind of like backwards, it means that the person is single and they're looking for a relationship. And then if you wear it on your right hand and it's just kind of normal, facing just the normal way, it means that the person is in a relationship or their heart has been captured. So a lot of people will wear this in Ireland, like friends of mine wear it, and it's kind of like a funny, almost like a relationship status. You know, if you're kind of wondering what someone has spoken for or not, you will kind of look at their hands, and it depends on the position of their Clatter Ring. It will show you if they're single, if they're married, if they're, you know, whatever situation they're in. And it's just interesting because it's just something, it's kind of fun, but, you know, it's, people often get gifted this on Valentine's Day, or even just a family member, you know. So dinner dates, obviously dinner dates in Ireland are, you know, on Valentine's Day are very popular. That's the majority of people what they'll do. So people will go for breakfast or for lunch or for dinner. So I just have some the main places. So there's Bewley's Oriental Cafe. So a lot of people will book their breakfast date in here, and it's one of the most popular cafes on Grafton Street in Ireland, really, but on Grafton Street. And most people will go for breakfast, and yeah, Bewley's is just, it's a really nice place to go, and if you're ever in Ireland I would really suggest going to there. And then in the middle, the Guinness Storehouse. So I think that they do actually a special Valentine's Day offer. So it's where the Guinness Brewery is. So they actually have like a tour, and they have this revolving, or it's like kind of like a rooftop bar at the top, and you can sit out and see the entire panorama of Dublin. So it's really nice. I'd recommend going there too. So a lot of people will go here for Valentine's Day as well, because it's just something different and it's romantic, and it's almost an excuse to just get out as well. So there, obviously, you have the Guinness because it's Ireland, and champagne. A lot of people drink Prosecco, and it's probably, you know, the most common drink on Valentine's Day is probably Prosecco, because, or Guinness. And the girl will usually drink Prosecco and the boy will usually drink the Guinness, and that's kind of usually how it goes. And then obviously people go to pubs for like traditional meals, or just for, you know, an evening out really. So this is a really common poem that people write on Valentine's Day cards. It's kind of cheesy, but it's something that people will have always said. Even as a kid, I remember like writing Valentine's Day cards in school, and that the teacher would write this on the blackboard and we'd have to copy it down. Like it's very simple, but it's nice. So it's roses are red, violets are blue, sugar is sweet, and so are you. So, you know, it's nice. So usually kids will write even this poem to each other, like in school, or like, you know, if they're passing around Valentine's Day cards, usually what they'll write, because it's kind of simple. And obviously then it's signed your Valentine, like what Ksenia said, that it was from the tradition. So it's kind of funny to see how that tradition started, and it's really carried its way through the centuries. So yeah, that's just what people will usually write on their Valentine's Day cards. Obviously, you know, they don't want to write something a bit more serious. So I'm not sure if you guys know about this, but the Irish leap year tradition is quite significant, and it's kind of funny that it falls similar, like maybe 2 weeks away from Valentine's Day. So it's a tradition that basically, I have a slide here. So it's on the 29th of February, obviously. So it's an old Irish tradition that originated in the 5th century. So basically, St. Bridget of Kildare kept complaining to St. Patrick that women had to wait too long for the men to propose. So as a result, St. Patrick said, well, okay, I'm going to give you this day, and women are allowed to propose to men, because obviously back at those times, Ireland was very Catholic, and it was very much like, you know, men had to do the proposing, the women couldn't. It was just the way it was, because the church had a very significant place. So what women would do was they would, you know, if they were in a relationship, or, you know, they wanted to marry someone, even if they didn't know them, this happened too, they would buy the ring, or they'd get a ring or whatever they had, and they will wait, you know, they could even be waiting 4 years, it could take that long. But every 4 years on leap year, the woman is allowed to propose to the man. So it's an Irish tradition. It's something interesting. There was actually a movie called Leap Day a couple of years ago, and it's actually a really nice movie if you guys want to watch it. But it's kind of something interesting that it's an Irish Valentine's Day tradition, and it's basically, it's one of our traditions. And so this tradition was later taken to Scotland by Irish monks, and in recent times the tradition has been renamed Bachelor's Day, because obviously it's the day where bachelors can propose to. So these are just some of the most romantic locations in Ireland. So there's obviously a lot more than this, but these are probably just the most famous. So the first beach here, it's called Port Salon Beach, and it's in Donegal. So on Valentine's Day, if the weather is nice, a lot of people will go for romantic walks, or even, I think a couple of years ago, the Valentine's Day, the weather was really nice. So a lot of people went for picnics on the beach, and they'd bring some food and some drinks, and they would just sit on the beach, and it's really nice. And then this photo here with all the sheep, that is Dingle in County Kerry. So a lot of people will just go maybe for like a nice romantic stroll or a walk, or a lot of people will actually go away to these locations for the weekend. So this photo here, which is obviously the Giant's Causeway in County Antrim. It's a very, very famous site, and also it's quite romantic, especially in the sunset. So a lot of people come here, propose, or even just go for a romantic walk, or just hang out really. And then the last photo is Glendalough, which is quite near to Dublin. It's in Wicklow, and a lot of people will go here because obviously it is so beautiful, and there is it's near a small town, so people can go to restaurants and even after just go for a stroll. And a lot of people will make a bit a day out of it, so they'll go and they will even just have a picnic on the banks of this river, and yeah, just basically make the most out of the day really. So that's basically it, and this is how you say that. This is the Irish of St. Valentine's Day. So if you want to wish someone a Valentine's Day, you say Laila Valentine Shona Ditch. So that's how you basically say it, and yeah, that's really it. Okay.
I actually wanted to ask straight away. I had the first question was just a surprise. Do you Dubliners really go to Donegal? It's 3-hour drive for St. Valentine's.
If Valentine's Day falls on a weekend, a lot of people will go and book.
Seriously, yeah. I think that people in Cork would probably, in Cork people would probably go just to West Cork, or to Kerry,
or to
Kerry, yeah, which is still quite all right. It's I don't know, 2.5 hours drive, but from Dublin to Donegal, it's I don't know, I would say 3 or something.
Yeah, well, I think if Valentine's Day falls on a weekend, some people will obviously leave on the Friday evening and come back on the Sunday.
Yeah,
a lot of people would do that. It depends on how seriously you take Valentine's Day, though. If you don't really take it too seriously, see, a lot of people just use it as an excuse for a couples retreat.
I'd say so, yeah. And no, thanks a million. It was actually super interesting. I finally understood why there are so many Cadbury chocolate boxes around. I didn't know that the factory is in Dublin, to be honest. Didn't know that.
Actually, I think
But about the Clatter Ring, that was super cool. I didn't know that the position actually is meaningful. But is it meaningful on which finger you're wearing it? Can you wear it on a thumb, on an index, or it doesn't really matter?
To be honest, most people would just wear it on their wedding finger. So you're.
Oh, okay.
It's really the wedding finger on the left hand or the right hand.
Yeah.
It's people wouldn't wear it on any other finger. I don't think it's only.
Yeah. So yeah, probably wedding finger is the one. Yeah, this makes sense. Kind of makes sense.
Okay, nice. Thank you very much, Jane. Thanks to Ksenia for important questions. Just right after, I also have some questions, but later and in Russian, as we promised to Jane. And I hope to encourage everyone here also to ask questions about what you heard, both in Ksenia's stories and in Jane's story. I personally want, as I said, that I had personal thanks to Ksenia because of mentioning Deirdre and Nisha's story. The same, I have personal thanks to Jane for mentioning Bailey's Cafe in the Grafton Street, because it's one of the places where delegations from St. Petersburg used to gather together after official visits to Lord Mayor of Dublin for many times, drinking whiskey there and beer after that, and even climbing to the upper floor to having some French wine and nice dishes. So it's a wonderful place, really very beautiful piece of art itself and piece of tradition.
Which one is that? Which one is it?
On the Grafton Street, Bailey's Cafe, very popular one.
All right.
It's the middle of Grafton Street.
Middle of Grafton Street. Okay, I must give it a try next time I'm in Dublin.
Yeah. So that's the first thanks. Then, of course, mentioning my very much loved Glendalough and the county in general, because, Wicklow and the whole area of Wicklow Mountains, for me, it's like stepping, aside somewhere to the fantasy land. And though I've been there only once, but it is still, one of the brightest memories. And thank you for the story of Clatter, because it is really interesting. And later, when we'll have the question part, I think we will discuss it. But now I want, again, for you all to listen to the beautiful music, since we have the next musical file. Again, a wonderful Irish harp musician, Anastasia Sergeeva, who is now based and living in Luxembourg, but originally from St. Petersburg. She recorded this for our evening especially, and it is one of the famous Irish romance themes. Now I will share it with you. Okay, I hope that you could listen to the tune and appreciate it. I think it's one of the most beautiful themes connected to romances. So thanks to Anastasia Sergeeva very much for that contribution today, as well as the first harp musician who today contributed, the same name, Anastasia Egorova. Anastasia Sergeeva was a very good friend of the Irish Cultural Center for many years, and we even managed to perform together in Dublin and in Cork twice in our experience when we made a joint presentation, when I recited some pieces of Irish and Russian poetry while Asya played beautifully traditional Irish tune. So thank her very much for that contribution today for our talk. Now, friends, as I promised in the second part of our evening, we turn from English to Russian. And I invite everyone who is here today to ask questions, to make remarks, comments on what you heard about St. Valentine in history and today. Значит, как договорились, переходим теперь на русский язык, и все комментарии, все вопросы, все ремарки уже делаем на русском. А Джейн к нам в этом деле присоединяется, и таким образом у нее будет свой тоже practice. Договорились? Ну, давайте, вот у нас есть Татьяна Николаевна, которая к нам присоединилась какое-то время назад. Вот, и поэтому я предоставляю
Здравствуйте.
слово заместителю директора центра в первую очередь.
Спасибо, Андрей Вазгенович. Ну вот, да, к сожалению, так совпало, что у меня были занятия, я не смогла раньше присутствовать, но на самое как раз вот я попала доклад, сообщение Джейн, и это было очень симпатично, очень красиво и интересно. И вот у меня вопрос вот какой. Может быть, я пропустила в связи с тем, что тут вот так вот это было немножко хаотично в моей вот сегодняшней ситуации. Вот вы говорили про розы, они там были на экране. Но вообще вот есть какой-то тип цветов, который предпочтителен для подарка? Вот какая-то здесь есть история с этим связанная, с какие цветы дарят обычно?
Okay, я не понимала все, но Clatter Ring, да?
About flowers, about what
я
certain color of flower.
Oh,
A type of flowers and the color.
Yeah.
Is it some? Does it have some special symbolism?
no, like people usually give each other roses. There's no meaning behind it. I think it's just tradition. Like you can give people tulips or daffodils or other types of flowers, but usually people will give one red rose. It's usually what people do, because in Ireland, I don't know if it's like Russia, but white roses are kind of they've negative connotation around them. Like they come in Ireland, white roses usually mean death, which is a bit morbid, but usually they mean you give them at a funeral. So people only want white roses it's not good luck, but they'll be mixed in with red roses. So people will get white and red roses, but not just white, because that is a little bit negative.
Спасибо. Ну, вообще, спасибо вот Ксении тоже, что с готовностью откликнулись и приняли участие.
Да всегда, конечно, пожалуйста.
Да,
всегда,
конечно,
пожалуйста.
Асю с удовольствием послушают волшебную музыку. Очень рада, что я застала хотя бы вот эту часть тоже.
Ну, что, идет запись, поэтому все будет без купюр, можно потом, наверное, посмотреть.
И на Настину тоже игру, она как раз нам подарила сегодня свое исполнение Ромео и Джульетты, и у нас был такой плавный переход от Средневековья к Ренессансу, и затем уже в наши времена благодаря этому, так что тоже увидите, услышите обязательно.
Да.
Хорошо, но если позже еще будут какие-то ремарки или комментарии, always welcome. Катя, может быть, у вас есть какие-то там вопросы или комментарии?
Вопросов нет, но я бы хотела поблагодарить, потому что это было действительно очень интересно. И я впервые услышала про вот это Clatter Ring, и про то, что оно имеет какое-то особое значение и особую форму свою. Прям было приятно это узнать.
Да, если вы сюда приедете, на каждом углу вам будут предлагать каких-то недрагоценных металлов за бесценок и заканчивая платиной за 1000 евро.
Да.
Поэтому любой каприз за ваш счет. Но действительно, оно как бы очень значимый символ здесь, действительно.
Ехать я собираюсь, да.
Вот очень хорошо, да, это будет один из важных таких элементов. У меня как раз на тему Clatter, да, ремарка и вопрос к Джейн. Вот насчет Ring я понял, да, и, конечно же, эти кольца, они в первую очередь популярны. Но Clatter, этот символ, он не только используется, насколько я знаю, в кольцах, но и в других pieces of jewelry тоже, да. То есть это могут быть украшения для цепочки, это могут быть кулоны, это могут быть браслеты с элементами вот этой Clatter. Вот как часто это встречается? Действительно ли так же часто, как кольца? Или это скорее такие редкость, такие изыски?
Like часто людей есть Clatter Ring? Очень часто, like, у меня есть друзья, которые Yes, Clatter Ring. The Elias Clatter Ring.
What about Clatter as image, not only for the ring, but also for other pieces of jewelry? Because I saw it sometimes using, you know, in the bracelet or sometimes for the necklace.
Трудно сказать по-русски. Like, people have earrings with Clatter Ring. People have necklaces. I have a necklace with a Clatter Ring.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, it's funny. When I went to Russia, like 2 years ago for a month, my parents gave me a Clatter necklace, and they gave it to me because they were like, "Oh, like maybe this will keep you safe in Russia." And but yeah, like
В
usually
этой страшной далекой стране на краю земли Clatter Ring будет оберегом.
people will usually give it to each other for like good luck because, you know, I don't know if you guys heard like the luck of the Irish. It's a very common thing. So people will give each other Clatter rings, Clatter bracelets, Clatter earrings, just for, you know, luck. And it also, it depends on the piece of the diamond inside of the Clatter ring. So for example, people will get for your birthday, like for example, for my birthday, I got a Clatter necklace, but it had the birthstone aquamarine because that's what birthstone. So people get emerald for if their birthstone is emerald or ruby or maybe just diamond. So it's kind of, people will get it for their birthday also, just as good luck.
Спасибо, Джейн. Спасибо за пояснение. Пожалуйста, приветствуются все любые вопросы, комментарии, ремарки тоже. Вот, пожалуйста, друзья. Чтобы не только мы, которые постоянно любят что-нибудь сказать. Максим, у вас есть, может быть, какой-то комментарий или вопрос, что бы вам хотелось? Микрофон
надо включить. Там где-то есть включить.
Вот, все.
А вот, нет, могу только поблагодарить всех докладчиков, всех выступавших. Спасибо огромное.
У меня есть один вопрос, но он не совсем по теме. Вот там среди фотографий, которые вы показывали с цветами, там стояла женщина и курила, вот пожилая женщина. И у меня такой вопрос вообще, вот какова ситуация в данном случае? Потому что во многих европейских странах женщины сейчас курят больше мужчин.
Это я вам скорее скажу. Да. Я дымлю как паровоз, а Джейн, наверное, нет.
Безобразие.
Нет, я имею в виду, ну, индивидуальные, так сказать, ситуации, понятно, у каждого свои. Я имею в виду, насколько это вообще вот в обществе, как это проявляется, это или нет. Вот что, много женщин курят? И
мужчины тоже.
Тоже.
Интересно, да.
Джейн.
Интересный вопрос.
Здесь такие цены на табак, что немногие курят. Ну, как бы курят, но, как сказать, это сильно бьет по карману. Поэтому у меня лично все, кто... Ну, вот, как сказать, когда я сюда приехала 7 лет назад, у меня было 20 друзей, скажем, и все курили, вне зависимости от пола, возраста и других предпочтений. А вот 7 лет спустя, наверное, 70% из них бросила. Ну, вот из-за цен именно. Это очень дорого.
Не из-за здорового образа жизни.
Нет, ни в коем случае. Нет.
Понятно.
Но не скажу, что женщин курит больше, чем мужчин, или мужчин больше, чем женщин, мне кажется. Примерно
это не по гендерному, да, по признаку?
Мне кажется, что нет.
Мне например, кажется просто, что в Дублине вот я видел, что больше почему-то я видел курящих людей, чем в Корке. Хотя и там было очень много раз. Ну вот как-то мое впечатление, может быть, потому что Дублин сам...
Может, потому что Дублин больше Корка просто сам.
Да, и центр Дублина более космополитичный, да, такой, и там все вот все. Да. Может быть, поэтому. В Корке как-то вот у меня такой не было картинки, что прям так много курящих. Хотя молодежь довольно много.
Это вы в барах в Корке в курилки не ходили в час ночи? Там яблоку негде упасть.
Еще бы я туда пошел. Я
Конечно, вам
наслаждаюсь
вы
тем,
бы
что в
оттуда
баре,
уже не
слава богу,
вышли. Да.
нету дыма. Да? С моей астмой не хватало мне в эту курилку маленькую пойти.
Не, там топор можно вешать, там можно и не курить. Просто зашел как бы и вдохнул и вышел.
Слушай, вы объясните Джейн выражение «топор вешать». Я не уверен, что она его слышала раньше. Что это значит?
So we are discussing the situation in the smoking areas in Cork bars and in Dublin bars, and I just I used the Russian idiom that we have that what we say is that you can literally hang an axe, and as any idiom, it doesn't make much sense, but it means that the air is really stuffy and smoky and so dense that it is like not an air anymore, but let's say a shelf or something, like, you know, some solid object, so that if you have, I don't know, an axe or any other device, so you can hang it in the air and it will stay this way because the air is so thick. Yeah. And that's pretty much how it is in Cork when all people in city are in the smoking area at 2 a.m., you know? Well, before the COVID, obviously.
In a lot of Irish bars, they don't have the smoke detectors turned on. So even like bars I know that, like, if people are staying after hours, they can sit and smoke at their table because
yeah, if it's a lock in, yes. Yeah, it's
very dangerous. But
funny thing, our Irish Cultural Center was opened on 26th of March 2004. And I remember quite well that 2 weeks before that, Ireland was the first country of European Union to totally ban smoking in bars and pubs. You see, it was just on the eve. And while opening, I said, you know, it's a symbol for me, because for me, it was just several months that I myself stopped smoking. I used to smoke pipes, you know, cigars and a lot of such hedonistic thing until I had asthma genetically. And for me, it was a very abrupt ban of smoking, totally. And it was nearly at the same time, just several months before it was banned totally in Ireland. And then I opened the center. It's quite a funny coincidence. Okay, any questions, please, or remarks or comments as well?
10-й час, люди устали.
Вопрос, может быть, не совсем по теме Дня Святого Валентина. А какое место в жизни Ирландии играют танцы сейчас? Мне как танцору просто интересно.
Да, Джейн, Катерина, вот я хочу сказать, что Катерина, она замечательно танцует ирландские танцы, и так же, как Настя Егорова у нас участвовала во всех мероприятиях в университете, играя на арфе, так вот Катя вместе со своими подругами, они танцевали ирландские, традиционные ирландские танцы.
В Ирландии, не знаю по-русски, на primary school, это школа для детей, все для физикального образования мы танцеваем ирландский танц.
Да, у них в школу входит, в программу школьную, правильно она говорит?
Немного, но не очень хорошо. Но в Ирландии есть River Dance, и это очень большой праздник в Ирландии. Каждый пятница есть концерт, и да, это очень интересно.
Я слышала, что в Ирландии проводят чуть ли не каждые выходные соревнования по ирландским танцам.
Упаси Боже, не знаю, такого никогда не видела, если честно.
Ну, это какие-то небольшие, типа международные,
да, ну, может быть, какие-то...
Нет, локальные, Ксюш, не международные, да. Конечно, а локальные.
Ну, в школах, да,
это так же, как херли и так же, как Irish football. Местные собираются вот там внутри графства. И точно так же с танцами. Насколько я вот, мне и рассказывали, и сам я видел, это бывает довольно часто.
Да, нам рассказывал тренер, получается, глава нашей школы, которая находится в Ирландии. Она рассказывала, что там достаточно много проводится соревнований, и поэтому можно... Ну, у нас есть уровни различные, И поэтому можно быстро достаточно выйти на более высокий уровень.
Из-за соревнований, да?
Да,
Ну, постоянный обмен, да, впечатлениями.
Да. Около 4 уровней: beginner, primary, intermediate и open. Эти первые 2 уровня можно очень быстро пройти.
Вы давно занимаетесь?
Где-то с 2014 года.
Давно, здорово.
Да, то есть там был небольшой перерыв из-за экзаменов, но сейчас я вернулась, танцую, то есть и выступаю, и в соревнованиях тоже участвую.
Ксюш, вы помните нашу группу старенькую еще в СПбГУ, ирландский язык и культура? Вот эти 10 человек верных, которые остались, и потом... Вот среди них до 10 года, потом уже с 10 по 12 она не ходила, потому что переехала в Москву, была Ольга Храмцова. И вот Оля, она изначально была с чешского отделения. Она потом поехала в университет Лимерика на 2-летний курс, где именно была ирландская музыка и танцы. То есть она поехала туда получать дополнительное образование по этой сфере, да? Но она не осталась затем в Ирландии, она, насколько я знаю, вернулась в Москву. Но интересно, что она прошла это, и что там было вплоть до истории, и там разных совершенно дисциплин. Но там была музыка и танцы, там, конечно, не только танцы были. Но, тем не менее, вот в университет Лимерика он сделал целое такое отдельное направление.
Катя, а вы знаете историю танцев? Расскажите нам что-нибудь. Я просто так все время думаю, я насколько как-то логически думаю, что это что-то достаточно новое, потому что я не представляю, что в 19 веке в католической Ирландии женщины в таких коротких юбках танцевали.
Ну,
то есть это какой-то достаточно
уже,
новый тип танца, нет?
Короткие юбки, да, это уже современное. У нас, получается, есть целая ассоциация, которая нам регулирует правила костюмов. То есть там короткая юбка должна быть там... Раньше это было 15 сантиметров от колена, сейчас вообще какая угодно. До этого раньше, конечно же, танцевали в более народных платьях, соответственно, с длинными юбками. И вот на самом деле я сама сейчас собиралась заинтересоваться историей танца, так как это входит в мою курсовую работу внезапно.
Тоже сейчас в Ирландии есть Кейли.
Кейли, да.
Да, Кейли.
Да, и очень популярный танц.
Да, у нас Кейли как бы на соревнованиях 2 человека, 3 человека танцуют, 4 и так далее.
Кейли — это групповой танец.
Да, групповой танец. И я даже однажды выступала с девочкой из своей студии, и мы заняли 2-е место на соревнованиях.
А вот именно вот эта течетка, я все пытаюсь дознаться. Сама техника, она как бы новая, старая? Или это был мужской танец исключительно?
Вот, на самом деле,
я не представляю, как можно это в длинной юбке танцевать, вот эти ноги задирать до носа.
Потому что ноги задирать, это уже, конечно, нововведение.
Это новая
и, насколько я знаю, одна из, не знаю, насколько это правдивая легенд, раньше, насколько я помню, был сухой закон, если я не ошибаюсь.
Такого никогда здесь не было.
Не было, да? Значит, это была какая-то жуткая легенда, которую я слышала очень-очень давно.
Эта легенда связана с ирландской диаспорой в Америке. Так что вы не то чтобы не правы, просто закон там, и он очень, кстати говоря, он очень сильно ударил по Ирландии. Потому что когда в Америке был сухой закон, из-за этого именно в 20-е годы Ирландия лишилась 1-го места как производитель виски. Именно Ирландия, а не Шотландия, держала до этого, в конце 19-го, начале 20 века, 1-е место в мире. А после американского сухого закона, поскольку Британия вела с Ирландией экономическую войну, они этим воспользовались, что американский рынок был потерян почти на много-много лет. И вот тогда шотландский скотч вытеснил ирландские виски с 1-х мест. То есть ирландский виски по-прежнему довольно популярен, но все-таки не так, как шотландский скотч в мировом смысле. Так что это был очень важный момент в этот период, да.
Да, и вот, насколько я знаю, люди все равно продолжали встречаться в барах на тот момент, но нельзя было как бы пить и праздновать, и вот так как бы глобально веселиться. И, соответственно, люди как-то выходили из этого положения, и они танцевали так, чтобы, если заглянуть в окно, этого не было видно. Соответственно, ну, как бы немножко двигается, да, люди ходят, а внизу уже происходят какие-то странные движения ногами быстрые. Ну, это вот одна из легенд, которую я слышала.
И что-то, конечно, мне кажется, что для развития целой техники школы танца какие-то там барные посиделки недостаточно, но легенда красивая и очень интересная.
Ксюш, понимаете, понятие ирландские танцы, оно широкое. Одно дело, когда мы говорим о джигах, да, или о келле. Другое дело, когда мы говорим об ирландском вот этом самом...
Нет, я говорю вот об этом
степе. Но это ведь только одна сторона. Степ, тут же рил, тут же джига, тут же еще что-то. То есть это же все ирландские танцы. И даже в одной программе Ривердэнса или Майкла Флетли с его Lord of the Dance или там Rhythm of the Dance, это все время будет так, чтобы не подряд одна чечетка. Поэтому мне кажется, что вот здесь действительно это было мужское направление, а Майкл Флетли просто это брендировал, и это сделал в 1994 году суперпопулярным в мире. В то время как все остальное, это на самом деле очень как бы хорошо ложится на общую традицию средневековых и ренессансных танцев.
Ой, ну остальные
вот
это, конечно, все эти джиги,
вот
это народные
festive dances, festive music, да, и поэтому здесь нет такой вот как бы, да, жесткой. Что касается боевого степа, насколько мне рассказывали люди, вот опять же в том же Лимерике, когда я был, я не был на этом musical department, но эти люди приходили к нам в гости на Йейтсовскую конференцию, откуда, ну, потом, соответственно, сидишь, беседуешь. И вот рассказывали историю, я тоже задавал похожий вопрос, что так называемый боевой степ, ну, конечно, он, может быть, выглядел иначе, чем нынешняя чечетка, он якобы, да, существовал и в Средневековье, и в Ренессанс. Но это не касалось женщин. Это было самовыражение мужчин таким вот образом, достаточно агрессивное, да. А затем это уже трансформировалось, и в наше время Майкл Флетли как бы придал этому вот ту форму, которую мы все сейчас знаем. Ну, не он один, но он в первую очередь, конечно. И благодаря тому, что он так прорвался на Евровидении и взял этот первый приз, это, конечно, тогда очень сыграло большую роль. В принципе. Я хочу обратить внимание всех, вот, что у Джейн, посмотрите, у нее цветы поставлены, как положено, да, в канун Дня Святого Валентина. Там еще экранчик с цветами ирландского флага. Вот смотрите, зеленый, белый, оранжевый. Более того, цветы тоже... Смотрите, белые, оранжевые, а там вот зеленый с красным, да?
И роза красная.
И роза обязательно. То есть полностью Джейн подготовилась к празднику. Еще мне очень интересно было услышать, Джейн, что в Ирландии можно дарить вот так вот в этот праздник цветы соседям, родственникам, друзьям, потому что у нас заимствована уже сугубо американская форма этого праздника, когда он превращен в праздник именно вот для partner, для wife, husband, то есть это вот таким образом. Просто поздравить члена семьи не очень принято. В День Святого Валентина считается, что это не про это. А вот в Ирландии, что мне нравится, опять вот этот family aspect, вот то, что это... И опять же и здесь подчеркивается важность семейственности и родственных связей, даже в этом празднике. Он немножко по-другому в этом смысле выглядит, чем вот то, что я слышал, как, скажем, в Америке. По крайней мере, не ирландцы. Так что интересный момент. Спасибо. Это делает праздник на самом деле шире и более таким, в этом смысле, не узконаправленным. Да? Потому что любить же можно по-разному, и быть близким можно по-разному. И в этом смысле то, что ирландцы и здесь находят вот этот элемент, этот момент, это очень тоже так трогательно и приятно. Мне, по крайней мере.
Я хотела еще добавить, что очень интересно было. Джейн показаны вот эти колечки, по крайней мере для меня это была новая информация, что вот колечки, если сердечко повернуто внутрь, значит это одна информация, если снаружи, то можно подходить, видимо, знакомиться, человек открыт для отношений. Вот это вот была очень интересная информация. Вот я тоже хотела спросить, насколько это актуально и как это используется в Ирландии. То есть они действительно так вот носят такие колечки, которые несут все такую информацию. Спасибо, Джейн.
Джейн, вот сейчас как люди действительно носят их или так, в зависимости от того, хотят ли они познакомиться или подчеркнуть, что они в отношениях?
Jane is not sure about it.
I'm not really sure.
So we are talking about rings with
Yes,
heart.
yeah, about Clatter Rings.
So, like, yeah, what they're trying to say is that would it be a common thing to do to wear the ring on a certain way, like, you know, as you said, heart outwards or onwards, to show your marital status, basically?
Yeah, everyone.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't go around wearing the ring on like my left finger because I'm not married, so like I wouldn't wear it on my left. It just would seem strange. But like most people would wear it on the people wear it as it's supposed to be worn. If you're supposed to wear it on the left finger, people wear it on the left finger. Like if I'm wearing, because I have one, I lost it though, unfortunately. I would wear it on the right finger. Like it's just the way we would do it. Like people wear it as it's supposed to be worn, because it is like the meaning is a meaning. Like the meaning symbolizes there. It's almost like when I was researching Cloudera Ring, there was a lot of people, and it was basically like the old gay relationship status on Facebook. You know, like people would wear it because they would know, like, oh, I'm married, oh, I'm single, and oh, I'm single but I'm looking for a relationship, or oh, I'm in a relationship, I'm not married. So it was the old day relationship status, but people wore it on their finger.
Yeah, that's another thing, that like in old days, basically your whole outlook was meant to show your status in the society, in the family. You know, there were different headdresses for if the woman is single, if the woman is married, same for the man. So it really makes sense that it's a very old tradition, so that the element of your costume is showing your status. That's very understandable.
Ну что, друзья, еще какие-то ремарки, вопросы, комментарии ко всему, что мы сегодня...
Thank you very much. Everything was very interesting, as usual.
Thank you. Thank you for the kind words. Еще кто-нибудь что-то, может быть, хотел бы сказать или спросить, пока еще есть такая возможность? Мы первый раз, на самом деле, делаем мероприятия, связанные с Днем Святого Валентина. Просто мне показалось, что, во-первых, вот Джейн сказала, что действительно в Ирландии, а мы стараемся соблюдать, в общем, логику именно ирландскую в плане выбора дней, там выбора...
Так а что ж мы тогда День Святой Бригитты не отмечали 1 февраля? Если мы по ирландскому идем календарю.
Дело в том, что, объясню, Ксюш, я вот начал, моя фраза была, да, что мы первый раз отмечаем День Святого Валентина здесь и решили это сделать. А что касается имболка или же Дня Святой Бригитты, то у нас была целая серия мероприятий за последние 3 года, связанные с ирландскими традиционными праздниками. И там уже многое говорилось и про День Бригитты, и про имболк, и в чем он похож на Масленицу, в чем он не похож, и какие элементы, и насколько это важно. Просто я счел, что здесь этого еще не было пока, да, поэтому первый раз вот в этом году мы сделаем что-то, связанное с Днем Святого Валентина. Или у нас, например, если на имболк было, или, например, на Самайн было, то на Бельтайн еще не было. Поэтому вполне возможно, что в мае мы первый раз в этом году сделаем что-то именно связанное с ирландскими праздниками, выбрав именно Бельтайн. То есть я бы хотел немножечко расширять в этом смысле. И я рад, что у нас это получилось, пусть и в таком тесном, почти семейном кругу русско-ирландском, но, тем не менее, очень приятно. И я надеюсь, что запись, вот, которую мы сегодня сделали, что она будет интересна, потому что я знаю, многие люди хотели бы быть, но не могут. Все-таки пятница вечер, очень у многих тоже бывает занято. И я точно сделаю, то есть я отредактирую эту запись, так что у нас будет и полная запись, и я сделаю отдельные видео по докладам и Ксении, и Джейн, так что они смогут их потом демонстрировать в YouTube, да, например, там, где захотят. Вот, поэтому большое спасибо им обеим за сегодняшний contribution. Jane and Ksenia, once again, thank you for your talks, for everything you shared, for your contribution. And thanks to everyone for participating, for spending this time together with us. Ну и если еще у кого-то какое-то пожелание есть, по-русски или по-английски, последнее.
Спасибо, было интересно.
Спасибо всем большое, да, Андрей, спасибо за приглашение.
Вот кот к нам присоединился, у Татьяны
Кот
Николаевны.
пришел,
тоже,
ой,
вот, видите,
кот.
это тоже приятный такой домашний символ. Да.
Он
Спасибо большое.
Я его выгоняю все время, чтобы он не мешал.
Не выгоняйте его, он классный.
Пустите его, чтобы он немножечко успокоился. Он переживал там за дверью.
Коты вообще, 2020 год показал, что коты очень любят Zoom. Вот, по крайней мере, те люди, которые постоянно работают дистанционно, они говорят, что вот стоит, то есть надо закрывать двери, иначе обязательно, если есть у вас кот или кошка, они придут, потому что им кажется, что что-то очень важное происходит без них, а поскольку они хозяева в доме, то это не соответствует, да, норме. Ну что, спасибо всем еще раз, и всем вам желаю хорошего дня Святого Валентина со всеми, кого вы любите, кто близок к вам, будь то это ваши избранники, ваши partners, husbands, wives, или будь то это просто близкие вам люди, родные люди, с которыми вам теплее находиться рядом. Поэтому я всем желаю, чтобы этот день мы вспомнили про тех, кто нам важен. Вот. И хорошего всем Happy St. Valentine's Day.
Спасибо. Андрей Вазгенович.